Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 10th day of June 2024. I want to introduce the panelists here in studio. I have Titus Makhanu, who is an advocate of the High Court. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam.
Where did you go to? We've not seen you in a very long time.
No, we've been around. We've been waiting for things to calm down, but it appears they have refused.
So decided to come back.
I decided to come back.
Okay.
And probably air my legitimate concerns.
All right.
Yeah.
It's good to have you. Janet Auko from Tunza Mtoto Coalition. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam.
You've been well?
I am well, I thank God.
The last time you were here, things quite happened online.
We are here, they'll happen again.
Okay. All right. Arnold Maliba, good morning.
Morning, sir.
A strategic communications advisor at the governing party. A lot of things happening in your party.
Not so much, just democracy and elections.
What do you mean?
There's nothing big happening in UDA. This is the nature of elections. Of course, when you sit on this side, you realize that elections is much harder than we ever appreciate. Even if you try to simplify it. This is the first time, I think, even if I've run for office before, I realized that IBC does a very heavy job. Yeah.
And initially, there was a bit of conflict between the Secretary General and a few leaders within the party. Has that settled?
Again, the said civil war is so much, is incidental to elections. That I will tell you something, if you were to just put the elections on pause, a lot of these noises you hear wouldn't be there. It's about people jostling for space, and jostling has never been peaceful. Elections can never be peaceful.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
We are shortly expecting Steve Ogolla, who's an advocate of the High Court, to also join us. As soon as he is ready to join, he'll be onboarded. On the front page of the Standard, MPs walk a tightrope on taxes, budget, how to strike a balance between taxing an already overtaxed taxpayer and raising the necessary revenue to meet the growing needs of the government is the daunting task that Parliament faces this week as the budget is read and finance bill put before the public. We're also talking about the main story that is on the Daily Nation, Respect Gachagua, and Ruto tells MPs. President Ruto, who yesterday revealed why he settled on his deputy Ruto-Gachagua as his running mate ahead of the 2022 elections, has asked young, ambitious UDA politicians from Mount Kenya and his Rift Valley backyard to respect the DP in the wake of wrangling in the ruling party. And that story, you'll find it on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation, where he's quoted as saying that let me just get that quote. He is saying Ruto calls troops to order on rising wrangles in UDA. The president and the DP deliberately shoved aside talks and exchanges on the infighting and the problems at the secretariat, disclosed a source private to the deliberations at the National Executive Council. And also on page 5, he explains why he chose Gachagua. Says that, Mr. President, there are people that went to him telling him to choose a younger leader that is in the Mount Kenya region, and they told him kuna kijana fulani ni mzuri, yule kijana ni mwenye bidii, lakini mimi niliwaambia hapana, wacha nipangane na huyu Gachagua kwa sababu ni mtu wa rika yangu ambaye tunaweza kupangana na yeye vizuri tusongeshe mambo mbele. And of course, we also see that the deputy president is reported to have been late for that event. It was at the Akorino celebrations, and he's quoted by the Daily Nation saying, that is Gachagua, Mr. President, first of all, I want to ask for forgiveness for coming late. I am not an indisciplined person. You know very well I was a uniformed officer, and in your government, I am the most disciplined person, he said, and went ahead to explain what exactly happened for him to be late. I want us to listen to the deputy president and him explaining what he means with what has been calling for as the unity for Mount Kenya region.
Unity will be achieved just like economic development. The economic development that Your Excellency are working on is through the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Inaanza huko chini, ikija juu. The same. Unity is bottom-up. Utaanzisha na wewe na bibi yako nyumbani mkubaliane. Because kama kwako nyumbani hakuna amani, hamwezi sikizana Kenya. Utoke hapo msikizane kwa kijiji. Mtoke hapo msikizane kwa location. Mkotoke hapo sub-county, county, region mpaka Kenya. And that is what we are trying to help the president to do. Kwa hivyo rais, sisi tunataka tuseme, the unity we are calling for is the unity of Kenya, but we are doing it bottom up. I want to say, and it's on record, Your Excellency, you know, Governor Susan Keheka knows, the amount of time I spent here in this county, Pale Molo, trying to heal the wounds of what had happened before. In Njoro, trying to heal the wounds and bring people together. I'm a peacemaker and I'm a uniter of people. And that is work, Rais, ukinikubalia nitakusaidia kuunganisha wa Kenya through the bottom-up approach.
And in the same event, the president said this.
Tusichangie maneno ambayo haina maana, inagawanya watu. Najua sisi Kikuyu yetu ni kidogo. Tuko na vocabulary, tunajua Mwathani Agosho, Moriega, Ngaino Mwega, hapo. Si ndio? Sasa tunangangana hapo. Sasa msiturudishe nyuma tena tutafute dictionary. Kwa sababu tunasema tumesikia iko ingine sasa inaitwa Komerera. Sasa hiyo hatujajua ni gani hiyo tena. Tumesikia iko ingine inaitwa Togonia. Sasa hiyo ingine. Sasa jameni, siwacha tu tusoe hii ya Mwathani Agosho na tuendelee mbele.
All right. So that was the very first ever face-to-face meeting of the two on those particular issues of Mount Kenya unity. Steve Ogolla is an advocate of the High Court. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam. Thank you.
It's good to have you.
Thank you, sir.
Let me begin with you, Janet. What exactly is happening here? Because just the day before, the deputy president had said that to achane na siasa, let's help the president to lead this nation. Then yesterday in that meeting over Corino, you witnessed what you saw yesterday. What are you making of this?
Thank you, Sam. I think it's very unfortunate what we have been witnessing in this country. And for the lack of any other word, I want to say that it's sad that we are dealing with quibblers, people who can say anything for the vote. It is not important anymore as to whether the position that you occupy, you think that you can be held responsible for what you say. We have gotten to a certain law that when a politician sees the microphone, they can say anything, just anything, as long as there are claps, accompanying, and as long as they're able to lie to people at that particular moment. It's really sad, considering that we are considering the very highest offices in the land. And that has been a trend, that someone stands on the mic, says ABCD, and then 2 days later takes a hiatus and takes a completely different route, because nobody in this country cares about accountability. Nobody cares about what did you say yesterday and what are you saying today? How can we marry the two? What circumstances had led you to saying that yesterday, but 2 days later or 2 weeks later, 2 months later, you unapologetically say something different? What are we telling people? And when we teach morals, and I've said this severally, that morals are caught and taught. We cannot put our children in schools and teach them about values, and our politicians are undoing it every minute on the mic. We really need to call people to order and tell them, please, the offices that you hold do not require you, or do not, you're forcing us to call you liars. We have even dug deeper in the dictionary to look for another, word for liar, quibbler, so that, because we really do not want to get to such levels. But these people are forcing us to do that. Even in the wider tax conversation, we are looking at people that called women of this country in a drama session for the UDA Women Forum. And they committed that diapers are not going to be, they're going to be free. But right now, we are looking at an eco-tax on diapers. What, they have not cared to explain, no, at that particular time, we thought this, but today, these are the circumstances. Why are we entertaining this level of lying for such high level, offices without abandon?
We'll get to the finance bill later on. But Titus, do you see any cause of unity in what has been happening, being championed by the deputy president? But is there any reason for worry for the president to an extent that in that meeting they have to respond to those particular issues?
Thank you, Sam. Obviously, what we are now witnessing is a process of settling in office after the elections. You remember when the Kenya Kwanza government, led by the president together with the deputy, went around the country promising people that they are going to achieve a number of things, they are going to do A, B, C, D. But one thing that is now coming out clearly is that once you settle in office, there are certain realities that sink in. Realities that sink in is that, number one, we have a constitutional system which has set up a structure as to how the deputy president and the president operate. Then number two, there are certain things that they have to consider, especially in terms of rewarding those people who assisted them in getting into government. So all these have come up and have culminated now into a situation whereby there seems to be a tug of war between the deputy president and the president. And if you remember Sam very well, a while back, the president came out saying that moving forward, in a view to implement the gender rule, the next election, they should be having a running mate who is a female. And I think that was the beginning point of what we are now witnessing. Because the deputy president feels that it appears that next time he may have a competitor for the deputy president position who probably is being preferred to be a female from the president. And then we also had nationwide visitations by some of the members of parliament from UDA. We've seen Ndindi Nyoro moving around. We've been seeing the likes of a Kapseret member of parliament moving around. And they are all saying that we need a united country. But on the other side, again, the deputy president is saying, and I think the deputy president has felt a bit rattled. That's why he has found a narrative that he's going to use to fight back. And he's now coming up with the issue of revenue sharing. One man, one shilling. This is not the first time that narrative is being exhumed, because during the 2019 consensus on how national revenue is going to be shared, it was also an issue that was being discussed. So for me, I feel like the deputy president has been rattled by the president, by the statement that moving forward, we are going to have a female deputy president. And he said that we've agreed, myself and Rigiji, he said that we've agreed that moving forward, we need to have a deputy president that is female. And then we have also seen some members of UDA. But
did that mean that it's in 2027, or it could be even after that?
But you see, when you tell your deputy that myself and my deputy, we've agreed that moving forward we will have a female deputy president, it means you are contemplating that the next election, before you exit office, you are going to have to consider having a female deputy president.
Is there a reason for worry, Advocate Ogola, when it comes to the questions of unity? But before we get there, let's listen to the two speaking about what should happen now.
The unity we call for is not against anybody. It's unity of purpose, so that people have unique challenges and peculiar interests that are specific to themselves, so that once they do that, we have one united country. Leaders here, let us be united, let us be peaceful, let us not talk at each other. We have a job to do.
Tuungane, tushirikiane, tufanye kazi pamoja, tusitenganishe wananchi, tusiwabague, tuwaunganishe ndio Kenya iweze kusonga mbele. I am pleading with you, my fellow leaders. Let us work together for the unity of this great, blessed nation called Kenya.
So they're both talking about unity. For Gachagua, things unite the family, unite the community first, and then the region, and then the country. For the president, is about let's unite the country. Let's not. What is the opposite of unite? Let us not divide.
Unite.
Let's not divide
yeah.
the country.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? Is there a real issue?
There's no real issue, Sam. This is all politics, and as you are well aware, politics revolves around two issues: money and rhetoric. Money increases visibility, rhetoric increases popularity. Since campaigns are over and the administration is in power, we are more aligned to listen to more politics of rhetoric. Politics of rhetoric means you say anything that enters your imagination to increase your popularity. So ideas are not fixed, ideas are free-floating, and the idea that you champion are ideas that are very subjective. So if you're young and youthful, it makes sense to say, The future belongs to the youth, and this is our turn, and there's nothing wrong with having conversations around a youthful deputy president in 2027. If you're old, like the deputy president, you say, I concur. The future belongs to the youth, but not today. We have a job to do. So the youth, tulieni, you'll hear that. Again, because of the nature of our weak politics, because our democracy is maturing, unfortunately, it's being punctured as it matures, which means it's maturing at a very painstaking pace. Yeah? So Gachagua is right when he says all politics is local, because he speaks to a particular constituency that propelled him to the position of the deputy president. And I can tell you, in his backyard at the moment, he's very popular. So what we are supposed to do as neutral analysts is to unpack what politicians say, not to be worried about the rhetoric that politicians drive. If you talk about 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling, it's a very popular characterization in Mount Kenya because of the large numbers of the population in that area. But that conversation can't sit well in Ukambani, Northeastern, and so on and so forth, who would want to prefer a conversation on 1 kilometer, 1 shilling. But that is what politicians are required to do, but there's what the law guides us on. If you look at Article 81, and Article 203 of the Constitution, it provides the constitutional imperatives that should guide the division of revenue, what goes to the counties, and among those is equitable share based on the development needs of each and every county. If you say that 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling, obviously Nairobi, with a population of almost 5 million, would take the lion's share. And if you look at the estimates, Nairobi gets less than what would be allocated to Nairobi County if we were to go with 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. If you look at other sparsely populated areas, then they would get nothing. The Constitution at Article 203 provides a framework, and I have not seen a challenge in implementation of that framework or adherence to that framework. So yes, the politics, this populist politics, meant to endear the leaders to a particular region because they speak for those regions. But ultimately, when decisions are made, we must make sure that decisions are made not with the region in mind, but with the constitutional imperatives in mind.
You referred me to Article 102.
One of the 203.
Okay.
Article 203, yes.
Yeah, because I was looking at 102, it's totally different. 203, equitable share and other financial laws. But
look at what that article provides in terms of what to look at when you're sharing. The development needs, the disparities in economic development, and how can we close the gaps and make sure that each and every part of Kenya has an equal opportunity to have access to development funds and to have an opportunity to close the development gap. You know, some areas more developed, others are underdeveloped. And the reason why other areas are underdeveloped is because of politics of the day in those times. And the Constitution sought to correct that by making sure that although the people responsible for sharing of the national cake may come from a particular region, those who come from elsewhere are not unfairly disadvantaged. And that conversations that goes on in the corridors of power, those who are responsible for sharing revenue, pay attention to the needs of those people who are not in the room. So I would be worried about the final outcome. I would not be worried about politics per se, but I would be worried about adherence to the principles on division of revenue that is articulated in Article 2.
So should residents of Mount Kenya region have any legitimate expectation based on what the DP is saying at this point?
They do, and they should, because that's what politics is all about. Politics is, you know, as we say in governance, money follows noise, and noise comes from politics. So there's nothing particularly offending about a particular region claiming they have been marginalized for years without evidence and demanding that that marginalization be closed. Similarly, there is nothing particularly offending with a particular region, say Mount Kenya, claiming that since we have a larger tax base, or whatever thing that can enter the imagination, we now deserve more, and our more is framed around 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. That's a very peculiar interest, peculiar only to Mount Kenya, because they look at the numbers and the statistics. Maybe Kisumu might have another framing. What I'm saying is, this should not raise alarm. It's part of a robust conversation, because politics is filled around propaganda. Propaganda means whatever idea that can sell quickly, go with it. But when you are making a decision, ultimate decision, you capture those thoughts, you balance them against constitutional imperatives. I'd be extremely worried if revenue is shared on account of population base or on account of kilometers. How vast a particular county. We should take those into consideration alongside other imperatives about maintaining stability, equality in the way the whole republic develops.
All right. Let's listen to something else that will sort of tell us of what is going on within the presidency, because for some time now, the deputy president has showed up at events attended by the president a few minutes late, and he had an apology to give yesterday. Listen to the explanation.
Nilichelewa, I had matatizo with my transport arrangements, alafu ikaingia mambo ya hewa, nikachelewa kutoka, nikakwama pale kati ya Longonot na Naivasha karibu 2 hours, ndio nifike hapa.
All right, so Arnold, a lot is going on. From all the conversations, but also now to this particular question of even the deputy president having to apologize. Would you know what's going on? Because it appears that for some time now he has not had the aircraft he usually uses.
Well, I'll try and contextualize this as much as possible because there's so much going out there. And I've realized there's a conflation between real issues and narratives. Because wherever there are issues, a lot of times for politicians, we always have to come up with narratives that can actually carry the issues that we have. Sometimes those issues are not even made to be public. So let me start with where you ask, the issues about helicopters and the deputy president having to actually explain as to why he's late. You know that the deputy president will always offer a very pragmatic and very objective part of his mind whenever he is addressing an issue. And I think this is one of those things I think the state has also been slow in explaining because it's a little bit sensitive. There is an overall review on our helicopter operations, specifically government-owned aircraft for obvious reasons. We just had an accident the other day. So there is a general one. If you were to ask guys in the military and guys in the police, there is a review on the helicopter operations. And until we actually have got a clear hold on what has been happening, I might walk you back that since 2019 to date, we actually hold the record in Africa for crashes that are not really well dealt with. You can actually walk back. Since 2019, we've not done a very good check on the accidents, the air accidents and incidents that have actually happened. If you would care to know, probably, let me just put this on the table, is that we actually are even due for an ICAO snap inspection because a number of things have not worked well. So that is the real issue. But then, of course, because there's the opportunity of politics, then you're going to have a little bit of people running with it.
So an ICAO snap inspection for what?
On a little bit of the issues that have actually, that pertains to air incidents since 2019.
For what?
The KCAA operations. There is, we actually are due for that. But
so
then,
sorry, for what? Commercial airlines?
No, generally, you see, Sam, our operations here are literally run by KCAA because you see, the military does not have its own radar. It's only KCAA that has got its radar. All our operations are actually centralized, if you knew actually how it operates. So at the moment, the point...
So the ICAO snap inspection
is because since 2019, we've had incidents and accidents that have not been entirely well investigated and settled and put to bed. I'm talking about nationally.
No, where? Was it Kenya Airways? Was it
no, I'm talking about
private
incidents.
Airlines? Was it Kenya Air Force?
It cuts across. But literally for ICAO, you know, we're talking about the civil part of it. But I've just told you that our air operations are literally centralized because we only have got one radar that is actually owned by KCAA. So at the end of the day, when we're talking about a snap inspection, it's about everything. But I told you that one of the things that is currently happening is that there is a review on our helicopter operations, specifically government-owned. And until we actually have got a grasp on it, then we can actually then go back, regularize the operations as has been. This is not an issue that probably anyone is willing to actually come out there and give. You know the accidents we've had in the past. The recent one that actually claimed the top man in the military. So that is the real issue. But then there are narratives that are actually incidental.
That's the real issue that...
At the moment, there is an ongoing...
Air Force.
I'm saying, at the moment, there is a review that is ongoing. And therefore, assets might not be available as it used to be in the days of old, until we actually have got a clear understanding of that. There are competent authorities that will actually answer to that, but I've just told you there is a review at the moment. But then for politicians, politicians can tell you to trust the process, but politicians don't trust the process. So when you hear the governor of Nyeri say whatever he says, for him it's about the narrative. I can tell you there is a rational explanation as to the availability of the air assets. Two, the deputy president explained very well that when he got to, Naivasha, Longonot, because of the weather, he had to wait. He's a learned man. He's actually explaining, but then we can actually go out there and pull. So when he said he had a problem with his travel, he didn't necessarily say that he had a problem with access to an asset that actually brings him there, because that is not paid by him, it's paid by the state. So somewhere, someplace, we actually have got alternatives, even as we review publicly owned planes. But then politicians will run with narratives. But I need to actually bring this entire conversation at home. Number one, we have got elections. And I'll tell you, the biggest problem we have at the moment, these noises around here, is actually elections. That a lot of what you see people fighting, that they're fighting in the name of, they are fighting for a certain mkubwa, it's so much about self-interest, lieutenants fighting for their own interests, but then they have to actually align themselves in a certain way if they are going to actually get an election win or something else. And probably I'm going to be a little bit bold. There is a narrative that is being sold that if Nairobi falls, when you talk about Nairobi falling, there are two camps. What side is said to be on what side. There's the feeling and the general story about that if Nairobi falls, then there will be a domino effect that will be replicated in other areas, and it could therefore threaten other people's position politically. But then on this election, I will tell you this, that in the last 3 months alone, UDA has added 1.2 members. So even as you see noises out here, for purposes of elections, aspirants on the ground have actually gone outside and mobilized people, bringing people in the party. So there has been a strengthening of the party, especially when it comes to membership. But lastly on this...
allow me to cut you short, because we'll continue this conversation after a short break, but you're still here. We'll get deeper into the conversation of the resource allocation. What is the formula according to the Commission on Revenue Allocation, and what is the Deputy President saying, but also what are different political leaders saying about it? Stay tuned for that.